The first time I saw her, the world shifted on its axis. It was a subtle, almost imperceptible tilt, the kind you feel in the pit of your stomach before your mind can even process the change. I was in the middle of my morning ritual, smoothing down the crisp white lab coat that usually acted as a suit of armor, a layer of professional distance between me and the chaos of Cape Coral Memorial Hospital. But that day, the fluttering in my stomach had nothing to do with the usual pre-shift dread of surgeries and consultations. It was a current of something else, something sparked by the whispers of a new arrival. Our hospital, nestled against the idyllic Florida coast, was more a haven for seasoned professionals seeking a slower pace than for bright-eyed graduates. So when I spotted her across the bustling nurses' station, she was a vibrant splash of color against a canvas of sterile white and pale blue. Her hair was a cascade of fiery red, pulled back in a messy bun that seemed to defy order, with rebellious strands framing a face that was both strikingly beautiful and instantly approachable. She possessed a kind of luminosity that seemed to emanate from within, a warmth that you could feel from across the room. Her eyes, a bright, intelligent green, scanned her new surroundings with an eager intensity that promised depth. Even from a distance, I could sense the energy rolling off her, a vibrancy that felt like a jolt of electricity in the hospital's predictable, humming rhythm. When I was tasked with giving her the official tour, my heart performed a strange, staccato beat beneath my ribs. Officially, it was my duty as head of general surgery. Secretly, it felt like a gift, a chance to step closer to that captivating energy. As I approached, my hand extended, I noticed a subtle flush rise on her cheeks, a telltale sign of a matching nervousness that soothed my own. My voice was steadier than I felt as I introduced myself. Her handshake was firm, her grip surprisingly strong for someone so petite, and her fingers lingered against mine a fraction of a second too long, sending a shockwave of awareness straight down my spine. That fleeting contact ignited a spark, a subtle tension that hung in the air between us like the scent of ozone before a storm. Walking her through the departments, the stark operating rooms, the controlled chaos of the emergency ward, I found my usual eloquence abandoning me. I stumbled over words, my explanations becoming clumsy and overly technical. Natalie, however, seemed utterly unfazed by my awkwardness. She listened with a focused intensity, asking insightful questions that revealed a sharp, curious mind and a genuine, unjaded passion for healing. Her enthusiasm was a breath of fresh air, a stark contrast to the weary cynicism that so often permeated the hospital walls. I kept stealing glances, admiring the way her scrubs moved with the confident sway of her hips, the elegant line of her neck, the way she bit her lip in concentration. Later, in the relative quiet of the cafeteria over steaming cups of bitter coffee, the conversation drifted from the clinical to the personal. We discovered a shared love for the quiet solitude of hiking trails, a passion for capturing fleeting moments through photography, and a mutual appreciation for a good glass of wine paired with even better company. The conversation flowed with an effortless ease that felt rare and precious, as if we were picking up a thread of a discussion started long ago. Her laugh was a melodic, infectious sound that seemed to push back the sterility of our surroundings, and I found myself laughing along, truly relaxed in a way I hadn't been in years. The fluttering in my stomach had morphed into a nervous, thrilling anticipation. Natalie Foster was a disruption, a beautiful, unpredictable variable in the carefully ordered equation of my life, and I knew, with a terrifying certainty, that she was going to change everything. The weeks that followed were a blur of shared shifts and stolen moments, each one layering onto the next, building a constant, humming awareness between us. We were assigned to a complex case, a young boy with a rare heart condition that demanded constant, meticulous care. Working alongside Natalie in that high-pressure environment intensified everything. I watched her move with a quiet grace under pressure, her hands deft and sure, her decisions swift and confident. I was drawn to her competence, to the unwavering calm at her center. Our collaboration became a silent dance, our movements synchronized, our minds working in tandem as if connected by an invisible thread. One grueling night shift, we found ourselves alone in the break room, the silence punctuated only by the rhythmic beeping of monitors from the halls. Exhaustion clung to us, but beneath the fatigue, a different, more potent tension simmered. In the dim light, we spoke not of medicine, but of our lives. We shared stories of past heartbreaks and disappointments, the hidden scars that shaped us. Her voice, soft and tinged with a vulnerability that disarmed me, confessed to a recent breakup that had left her feeling bruised and uncertain. As she spoke, a wave of protective empathy washed over me, an almost overwhelming urge to pull her close and promise her that she was worthy of a love that wouldn't leave marks. The air crackled with unspoken emotions. I could feel her gaze on me, intense and searching, and I wanted nothing more than to bridge the small space between us, to finally touch the current that had been buzzing between us for weeks. But I hesitated, the ghost of professional propriety holding me back. The annual hospital party was a boisterous affair I typically avoided, but I found myself compelled to go, knowing she would be there. Standing near the bar, I scanned the crowd until my eyes found hers across the room. That spark ignited, a silent, powerful acknowledgement. She made her way to me, a shy smile playing on her lips, her green eyes shining. We talked, we laughed, and when a cheesy pop song gave way to a slow classic rock anthem, we drifted onto the dance floor. The music faded into a distant hum as we moved together, our bodies aligning with an innate understanding. It wasn't just dancing, it is a conversation, a confession. My hand on the small of her back, her head tilted close to mine, the warmth of her body seeping through my clothes. The intimacy of it was profound, a closeness that transcended the crowded room. Later, outside in the cool night air, we shared a lingering hug. It was a hug that spoke volumes, our bodies pressing together in a silent admission of the attraction we could no longer deny. As I pulled away, the lingering warmth of her touch, the faint scent of her perfume on my jacket, felt like a brand. The night ended without a kiss, but with a silent, seismic understanding that something fundamental had shifted. That fragile new peace was shattered a few days later by the jarring ring of my phone in the early morning stillness. The caller ID displayed a number I hadn't seen in years, belonging to my estranged sister, Emily. A knot of cold apprehension tightened in my stomach. Our relationship was a tapestry of misunderstandings and resentments, worn thin by years of silence. The voice on the other end was not Emily's, but a detached, professional tone informing me that my sister was gone. A sudden cardiac arrest. The words hit me with the force of a physical blow, stealing the air from my lungs. A wave of nausea washed over me as I stumbled back against the wall, my hand flying to my mouth. All the unspoken words, the missed opportunities, the years of distance came crashing down. The sterile white walls of the hospital locker room seemed to close in, suffocating me. I sank to the cold tile floor, my body shaking with sobs I could no longer contain. Years of carefully constructed composure crumbling into dust. I was lost in that storm of grief when a gentle hand on my shoulder brought me back. I looked up through a blur of tears to see Natalie kneeling beside me, her face etched with a concern so deep it felt like a lifeline. Her presence, which usually thrilled me, now felt like an intrusion on my private pain, and yet, the warmth in her eyes was the only solid thing in my dissolving world. She didn't speak, didn't offer hollow platitudes. She simply sat with me, her hand a steady, grounding weight on my shoulder, her silence a more profound comfort than any words could have been. She drove me home, her quiet strength a pillar I leaned on heavily. She made me tea, and the warmth of the mug in my chilled hands was the first sensation to pierce the numbness. As she was leaving, our eyes met, and for a fleeting moment the grief receded, replaced by a different, aching need for connection. Our lips were inches apart, a silent question hanging in the charged air. But the moment fractured under the weight of my sorrow, and she pulled away with a soft goodnight, leaving me alone in the echoing silence. The funeral was a somber, muted affair. I moved through it like a ghost, detached from the hushed whispers and the heavy scent of lilies. Standing by the grave, the cold, final reality of it threatened to swallow me whole. And then I saw her. Natalie stood at the back of the crowd, her presence an unexpected beacon of warmth. I hadn't asked her to come. The memory of our almost kiss was a tangled knot between us. Yet there she was, her green eyes holding a quiet understanding that seeped into the frozen parts of me. Back at my apartment, the silence was oppressive. Natalie had insisted on coming, and her presence was a quiet bulwark against the despair. We sat on the couch with a bottle of wine, not talking about Emily directly, but about family, about the complicated loves that shape and sometimes break us. She shared stories of her own, her voice a soft, soothing balm. Our fingers brushed, reaching for the wine glass, and a shiver of pure awareness, startling in its intensity, shot through me. The air thickened, charged with all the things we weren't saying. As the night deepened, the wine loosening the tight knot in my chest, I really looked at her. I saw the woman who had seen me at my most broken and had not looked away. Her hand rested on the cushion between us, and I reached out, my fingers intertwining with hers. The connection was electric, a completed circuit. Her eyes met mine, filled with a silent question. I leaned in, drawn by an irresistible force, and the space between us vanished. Our lips met in a kiss that was both tentative and desperate, a confusing, beautiful mixture of grief and longing, comfort and desire. It was not a gentle kiss. It was deep and searching, as if we could pour all our pain and hope into each other. It was a kiss that shattered every remaining wall I had built, revealing the raw, aching need beneath. But as the intensity subsided, a cold wave of guilt washed over me. The shadow of my sister's death, the fresh grief, felt like a betrayal of this new, passionate life. I pulled away, breathless and confused, my mind reeling. Natalie, her eyes wide with a mixture of surprise and uncertainty, stood and left without a word, leaving me alone with the ghost of her touch and a turmoil even greater than before. The days that followed were a special kind of torture. The easy camaraderie was replaced by a strange silence, a palpable tension that turned the hospital corridors into a minefield. We avoided each other, our interactions reduced to curt, professional nods. The memory of the kiss was a constant loop in my mind, a source of searing heat and icy guilt. Our colleagues noticed the shift, their curious glances adding to the pressure. The tension finally snapped during a hectic shift when a miscommunication between us, born of that silence, led to a near-tragic medication error. The patient stabilized, but the reprimand from our superiors was nothing compared to the crushing weight of our failure. I fled to the supply closet, seeking a moment of solitude, but the door swung open and there she was, her face flushed, her eyes blazing with a frustration that mirrored my own. We argued, our voices hushed but sharp in the cramped space. We hurled accusations about the mistake, about the tension, about the kiss. But the anger was a thin veil, and as our eyes locked, it dissolved, revealing the raw, vulnerable truth beneath. Without a word, I reached for her, pulling her into my arms. Our bodies collided, and this time, the kiss was pure fire. It was an explosion of all the pent-up emotion, the fear, the anger, the guilt, the desperate, undeniable want. It was fierce and consuming, leaving us both shaken and breathless, and more connected and more terrified than ever. I needed space to think. I took a day and went to the beach, walking for hours as the rhythmic crash of waves and the vastness of the ocean slowly soothed my tangled thoughts. I realized my fear was not of Natalie, but of the intensity of what she made me feel, of the vulnerability that came with truly loving someone. But stronger than the fear was the longing, a profound need for that connection. As the sun set, painting the sky in gold, I made a decision. I would stop running. When I pulled into my driveway, she was there on my porch, illuminated by the soft light, as if my decision had summoned her. We stood facing each other, the air thick with unspoken words. Then she spoke, her voice soft but unwavering, admitting she couldn't pretend anymore, that what she felt was real. Her words were a validation, a key turning in a lock deep inside me. We talked for hours inside, laying bare our fears and hopes. The vulnerability we shared forged a deeper intimacy than any physical act could. As the night deepened, our whispers turned to soft touches, the anticipation building like a slow, sweet burn. My fingers trembled as I reached to unfasten the clasp of her necklace, brushing the warm, delicate skin of her neck. She shivered, leaning into my touch. With a reverence that felt new and profound, I explored the landscape of her body, each curve a discovery, each sigh a reward. The night that unfolded was a tender, passionate exploration, a culmination of every charged glance and every unspoken word. It was a surrender, a claiming, a silent vow exchanged in the dark. The aftermath brought whispers at the hospital, judgmental glances, and the strange disappointment of my parents. The world outside tried to press in, to define what we had. But in the quiet moments, a shared smile, a secret hand squeeze, the warmth of her body beside mine in the dark, we built a fortress of our own. Our love became a defiant act, a quiet rebellion. We transferred to different departments to protect our professional lives, and the distance only made our private moments more precious. A year later, we stood hand in hand on the same beach where I had found clarity. The setting sun cast a golden glow, just as it had that decisive evening. Surrounded by a small circle of friends and, miraculously, my parents, whose hearts had softened with time, we exchanged simple gold rings. As I looked into Natalie's eyes, shining with a happiness I knew mirrored my own, I understood. The greatest love stories aren't born in ease, but forged in adversity, often emerging from the most unexpected places, like a sudden, life-altering knock on the door of a well-ordered life. And as I leaned in to kiss my wife, the salty air filling my lungs and the waves crashing a rhythm for our new beginning, I knew our happy ending was simply the start of our forever.